Hi everybody, it's Franny.
And this is Heidi.
And we have something super special for you today.
It's a 356 restoration shop.
Actually, I think the first 356 Porsche that I saw was the first one I bought. I'd seen magazine articles, but nobody I knew owned a foreign car. I started out not knowing a lot about them. As I got into them with my own hands, I enjoyed the engineering and the design and the fact that they lasted. Hot rods that I was familiar with were short-term projects, but the Porsche, and as is proven, it was designed that lasted. Wasn't intended to, but it did last. My first 356, I didn't know what I was doing. Traded it away and I got a second 356, and I bought it from an individual that was restoring them, and he taught me how to restore them. So that was a hobby. I was still working in the computer industry. When I took an early retirement, I asked myself, what did I really enjoy doing? And it was restoring the Porsche 356. So I started this shop, 356Restore, in 1992. About 5 years later, my son joined me. So it's been the two of us, and we work together well. For 26 years, my son and I have been restoring the 356s, and we've done over 130 of them now. I'm Jim Kellogg, and this is 356Restore here in Parker, Colorado. The shop has always been in our residence. Surprises people. I don't know if you drove out here, you might think you're looking for an auto shop with maybe a junkyard around it. But these are all nice homes on 5-acre lots. Surprises a lot of people that the shop is in the basement of the home. Our mission statement when we started the shop was to get these great cars back on the road. And we like to get the owner involved. I think the other thing is that we always have 3 or 4 cars in progress. So while one may be dismantled, one may be in media blasted, one may be put together, one may be doing metal work. So we've always got projects going we can jump, so there's no pauses, no delays.
All right, nice.
I understand you have Cal Lancer's 356 54 Speedster in your shop. I did that car many years ago. It was a Friday and we got a call and the gentleman said, Jim, could you look at my cars, 356s? I said, what do you have? He said, 3 Speedsters. I said, okay, I'll do that. And I went over there. It turned out people had been knocking on his door for years. 2 of the cars were stored outside under sort of a lean-to in a back building. One was in the garage, but it was used for recycling newspapers and boxes, so you really couldn't tell much. So of the 2 outside, I said, what's the story? And Cal said, well, my health isn't that good. I'd like to get at least one of them done. And I said, I tell you, I'll do one in exchange for the other. Which one do you want? And of course, he picked one with the Rouge knockoff wheels. So we did Cal's car. He helped out. His health got better. He's doing great today. And I got one in return. So over the years, we worked on, I think, 4 or 5 Speedsters. But Cal's was the most fun because he was involved, and it was an early car, and we learned a lot about the early pre-A Speedsters. What's happened in the last 5, 7 years is the interest in the 356 Porsche has increased and the values have gone up. And to me, it's always been sort of a hobby type of relationship with other people. Unfortunately, in my mind, it's become a business, and things have changed. I think it's going to stay that way. I've watched the values of the cars. Well, yes, there's been a softening. I'm of the opinion there will always be interest in these cars. They were well engineered, well designed. They're unique. Porsche itself continues to stress their beginnings with the Porsche 356. So I think the future for the 356 is strong, and we hope to continue to restore these cars. We had a monthly newsletter that went out for the last 26 years. In fact, all those newsletters are on our website, 356Restore.com. And in that newsletter, we'd say, we're looking for parts. And parts would come to us as older collectors decided that they didn't need stuff anymore. And that's basically been it. We sell to friends, mostly local. And with values of parts going up, we may want to get into the parts business. Well, you notice we have a lot of engine parts, and what's funny is we do not do engine work here. We've got a couple of really good mechanics, but when we purchase cars as projects, they'd come with engine parts because quite a lot of the people that bought the Project 356s were gearheads. And unfortunately, quite often, one of the first things they did was pull the engine, which may not have been necessary. But then they buy extra parts anticipating that they were going to do some engine work. And we'd end up with the parts. Well, I enjoy most is the disassembly and the reassembly. Disassembly is like a mystery. Why did the factory do this? Or why did the previous owner do this? Is this correct? And then you got to do a little research to see if it is. The body work I enjoyed. BJ enjoys it more, so he gets to do more of that. Metal work the same. Reassembly I also enjoyed. It's getting those gaps the way they're supposed to be. And I not only talked to him, he's a customer, and he wrote an article. He went to the factory and he talked to the technicians at Reuter, the coach builder. Remember, Porsche didn't do the body work.
Right.
They made their own tools, and they would take the lead, and they had their own tool, 44 millimeters, and that's how they would get a 4 millimeter gap. So it was all made by hand. So when they say 4 millimeter gap, that's true for the bare metal. But once you get your paint, primer and paint on there, a 3 millimeter gap is probably more correct. And that's how they leaded. On the early cars, pre-A's, there was a lot of lead around the front and rear deck lids, around the doors, around the seams where they joined them together and used acetylene to weld them. It was quite a bit of lead. But you get to the C models, very little, because by then their presses and their jigs were all pretty well fine-tuned. So very little lead on the later cars, quite a bit on the early cars. This panel, as you can see, is the front of the right side door. It's the fender piece. And that part on the 356 Porsche is where the mud would come up off the tires and hit behind there and cause this panel to rust. This is kind of typical stuff people did to restore the cars. And here we can see brazing. which was quite common because it was low heat. You didn't have to have a welder. In fact, the factory did some brazing on the cars, but very little of it. The factory primarily used oxyacetylene, but they had jigs. So when they put things together, it was straight. But here somebody's done some brazing. Bondo, that's a filler. Rivets, you can see how they riveted pieces together. And on the back, fiberglass. There's rivets. And then overlap seams. Believe it or not, I had a book that showed that this was a repair idea way back when. But the obvious problem is mud will get in there and just open that. So this is what somebody did on the outside of the car. On the underneath the car, we've all seen all this. Chicken wire, some material, Bondo. This is bad news. People used expanding foam, thinking that it would solve problems, and all it did was create. In fact, one of the guys on the 356 forum had what he called a foam car. Every cavity in that car was filled with foam, took them apart.
A foam car.
And that's just, just another example, wire and Bondo. So people like the cars. They hadn't spent much to get them. They were projects. And you could do this kind of work and make a pretty reasonable looking car.
Right.
So I would say in this shop, at least 60% of what we do is redoing old
Lot of
work.
this.
Yeah, old work.
Yeah, at one point I heard that Bondo wasn't so great. So what are they doing now instead of Bondo?
Well, technology has improved. We still use Bondo as a skim filler. But if you need strength, like around the doors where the factory used lead, they have things called like all metal, which is a filler, but it's got an aluminum base and it's quite strong.
Okay.
So in that area, we'd use all metal. In some other areas, you can get a filler that has fiberglass particles in it, and you can use that. So there's nothing wrong with Bondo if you know how to mix it and apply it. So anyhow, a lot of do-it-yourself approaches to restoration that have to be taken care of. So
I hope you like that little tour of Jim's shop. He's quite the fixture in the 356 world. He does amazing work on those cars.
He has some really cool stories, as you probably heard, and he's really fun to hang out with, and we love his shop.
Yeah, it was just a really good time. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, of course, always leave them down below.
But anyway, we really appreciate you subscribing to our channel.
As well, yeah. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, safe travels.
Bye.